See, that's like the perfect. I don't know why it dropped just now. I'll stand there. I'll get one.
No, that's fine.
So far.
I
This is
don't
a
know.
microphone?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was slipping the end of it or not. But if it's working
I'll watch
right
it.
now,
Yeah, just leave it for now.
if not, I thought maybe if we slid it back to help it keep it from. I'll leave it out here just in case.
Okay.
This was basically a community center. It started out as this used to be public works. So this used to be a garage. And then they closed it and that home was held. But it was basically a community activity center. It was a community center. It was really looking the auto shop and the classes. And the chief retired and kind of really, it was a restaurant for a while, a couple of restaurants.
You sit here? You can sit anywhere. I don't want to sit on a stool. Morning.
Good morning. You can appreciate the other thing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So he was issued the original citation on November 19th and was explaining the situation of the dogs barking, and the dogs were not continually bark according to city ordinance, and was disturbing the peace of his neighbor and sleeping in the middle of the night. He was also issued a citation in February, on February 28th, for the same ordinance, and our fine schedule goes up. It was $75 for the first citation. The second citation was $150, and the third citation was issued on March 7, 2025. During these events, when the citations were wrote, I personally was on scene to listen to the dogs barking. I do have some videos that were taken. I'm certain, I don't have every time I was there, but I'm certain it's there.
Are you gonna be offering video as evidence, or are we giving,
I'm sorry?
are you going to be presenting the video as evidence, or?
Yes.
Okay. And you're welcome around the video if you like.
Okay, so I'll get to that one in a second, but I'll focus more towards the end when I started. Like I said, I showed up on all 3 occasions. I witnessed the dogs barking for at least 15 minutes or better. At all times, I was away from the property while they were barking. The beginning of it, I was down an alley that's about 150 feet from this property to witness the dogs barking. And then throughout the duration of the citations, Mr. Morrison argued the fact that we were making his dog bark, and I moved over to across the street in front of the complainant's house, which is at Pennsylvania and So since I wrote the citations, prior to that, it was. We have 11 different instances that we should have put the complaint in our document.
And each of those instances is your testimony that a violation had occurred.
Those are 11 instances that we should have and the violation was occurred.
My final question too is, has there any corrective action been taken by the respondents with regard to any of these instances?
Not really know of any correction that he has taken on his place. At one time, he thought the dogs were removed, and I talked to Mr. Morrison about it, but he said they had not been removed.
Understood. If the city is there any other evidence you like to offer?
No, sir.
Well, at this time, we'll give the respondent an opportunity to respond. This is again your opportunity if there are specific questions. Please keep it cordial. I will shut it down if it doesn't, if we don't stay pertinent to the case. You know, I understand these things can be passionate and that folks have, it's tough with neighbors, so let's try to keep it cordial. If there's specific questions as to the city's evidence, you know, keep it pertinent to the evidence, and we'll walk through from there, and then you'll get your opportunity to state the case. Is there any questions for the city's for the officer at this time?
Yeah, I want to know what the evidence is in this game. I didn't get that citation. I mean, written citation. What evidence is this?
So,
I have no knowledge.
so to be clear from the officer, I think referring to 11 calls that he responded to. He's not necessarily saying there was an incident report for 11. Is that correct?
No, so there was an incident report written or was documented, or two incident report documented,
Okay.
but there was only 2 citations throughout the beginning of it.
But this is what I want to say. The incidents only come from one person. Because we have a criminal case against him. So he's going to do anything in his power to get on the police side, to try to, you know what I'm saying, do anything I can make him get riled up to get his case off. I got video on my phone of cameras I got on my property. When this man walks on my property taking pictures of everything I asked. So I have video of it. So, you know,
And I understand, but you have to understand my role here. My role is to weigh the city's evidence against whether.
no, I'm just saying,
Well, I understand.
I have videos. Why can't I get charged of him on my property? March 7th, on this day, March 7th, he's on my property taking pictures.
And I can't speak to the pertinence or whether your rights relative to your neighbor in terms of whether you do have a case or don't have a case. Our role today is to simply decide whether a violation has occurred as to the dog's barking and to take the appropriate action, and that action can include the citation of fines, or if there's a way to remedy the situation to address it for both sides. I think that's also an outcome that's we can work towards, but you know, the other issues are besides what we're here to do.
The thing is, they want me to get rid of everybody in the house. I have one around my property. I got dogs. Okay, there's no dogs that bark. There's no slaves. There's dogs in the park at humans, wildlife. Sometimes streets and break. Sometimes I for that those pop or whatever they get in the park. Anything. I can't stop it.
Mr. Alfonso, the city's testimony is that the audible nature of the dog's barking occurred violation of city code, that those are what we're here to decide. You know, I understand the other sides of this and how difficult and complex they can be, especially with neighbors.
This was a lose-lose situation when Stephen has some type of whatever officer here. You know, they lose together somehow. I don't know what's going on because I asked, did he make any complaint? All of a sudden, I started reading the complaints when one of the occasions I was on the property, I made the dog bark so Stephen couldn't call, and then he knew I was standing there. He tells me, I'm gonna get your ass. I'm gonna get your ass. And drive off. I was there 5 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? The disrespect that's coming from the law enforcement that they've done is ridiculous. I know. I understand that you're the law. I'm supposed to abide by the law. But I'm not gonna take the disrespect about this here on my property, what I should do on my property, what you can do with me. And I never have an issue. I never had issues with nobody in the
We're getting off topic. I understand the relationship with the city and your neighbor, but you have to speak
I
honestly.
understand those people who have citation is
This is the nature of the accusation. They're accusing you of violating an ordinance, and I've yet to hear any response.
I guess I'm a violation of the dog park. I guess I can't stop it. What else would we got to do?
Well, Mr. Alfonso, however you control your animals is the same privilege that's due to every
But
neighbor.
it's against the law.
Again,
That's
we're here to either solve problems.
That's the question. Is that animal cruelty?
Mr. Alfonso, I'm not here to decide any of that. I'm here to. So moving on, is there any other evidence you'd like to provide that speaks to the issue at hand, which is whether a violation has occurred? And I'm offering you the opportunity, if there is.
Only that I know that Stephen put his dog across the fence and he was running around on the property the reason why the dog walking on February. The first time, I don't know why the dog. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I can tell you, March 7th, I knew Stephen was on the property. That's all I know. I can't speak to nothing else. And whether they sit down the road and listen or whatever, I don't know how long the law is. You know, people can say anything. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I really don't know. But saying that there isn't a law saying that you have to live on the property of your dog. There isn't a law for that. And I'm being told that nobody lives on the property. That has nothing to do with it. That's not the city property. That's mine. So if I put a dog on the property, that's my business.
Mr. Alfonso, it sounds like there's no more evidence that you have to offer as speaking to the issue at hand. I'm going to turn it to the city to have an opportunity if there's any clarifications or cross-examination that would like to occur, or we can rest the case and
So,
decide.
the only thing I'll add to is on the first citation that was written in November of 19, he was not on scene. When it originally happened, he showed up on scene. He did not want to take the citation. I laid the citation on the window of his car. He got upset with me. The second citation, he showed up and I issued it to him. And he didn't want to take it. And he finally took it.
Please let the city have its opportunity to cross. I gave you the same privilege.
The last citation, I believe it was, and I don't know my papers, but was, he never showed on scene and it was certified mailed to his house.
And we said, is everything we said?
Yes.
Is there a recommendation from the city as to the appropriate action?
As far as the citation, these So the second piece for this hearing, Mr. Morrison and his brother, Mr. Morrison, and the estate of Anna Mae Morrison, were issued a notice of violation for one being for the dogs that continue going on past the point of the last citation, and also for nuisance calls to the property.
And just to be clear, we're talking about 7.10.01, that section of the code, the noise pollution, and the audible nature of it, or is this speaking to the nuisance statute itself?
I filed them together on the same paper as well.
That's fine. And, given the evidence that's already been presented, is there any additional evidence besides the citation that you want to introduce?
Yes, sir. So after that incident on the 14th of March, Mr. Morrison requested to speak to an officer about the situation going on. I met with Mr. Morrison on Church Street, across the street from his property, and spoke with him about the situation, and he was concerned about the city trying to take his property, and I explained to him he had to fix the situation with the dogs barking, that they cannot continue to bark. I tried to have a civil conversation with them, that nobody should have to live next to that house with dogs barking for hours on end every night. Mr. Morrison expressed that he's not getting rid of his dogs, and I asked, he said, what am I supposed to do? I said, you can take them to your house and they'll tell them if you like. I said, but there's nowhere here for you to bring them inside, there's nobody watching them when they're all around. I said, for them to continue barking. I said, we're not an animal, whatever it is, going around, but we don't have it. I said, I work night shift, told him, I said, I can sit here at night and the town's peaceful, and I come up here and the dogs are barking. Mr. Alfonso started getting a little upset with me, and I ended the conversation and I left. He also talked to me at that point about the citations. I explained to him how to take care of the citation or to fight them, which he took care of in the next couple of days.
And to clarify too, the incidents in questions occurred after 10 p.m., is that correct? Or
Yes, all this were after 10 o'clock. Most of it was between around 11 to 3, 4 in the morning.
And the same is true of the last evidentiary hearing, that your testimony again is that the dogs were audible from neighboring property.
Sorry.
The dogs were audible, the barking was audible, it could be heard from neighboring property.
Yes.
And that you also have, you're submitting the same evidence as to the adjoining property owners, evidence too, as to them hearing the same thing.
Yeah, so the one video is that will be the same evidence for this one.
Okay.
Added to that one this will be from across the street. That looking out is me being on Pennsylvania just to show where I'm at, looking to his property. The house across the street with the lights on is actually the complainant.
Okay.
So his property, Mr. Morrison's property is actually down to the left. Next property down. So this is where I was located after his complaint that we were close by. Sorry. So you can't have as much of where I was from, where I was at on this occasion. But you can still hear the dogs barking. Noticeably from how far away I am from the property. This is on the 25th.
Where's the location?
This will be the same location. Yes, sir. And I won't put it all in, just like a 15-minute video. And then Mr. Soteric sent in a video from his camera from his house of this 3 years from the neighbors. This is from his house, from his security camera. So
Is he here today?
he is not.
Okay.
I'm not sure he was supposed to be here. I'm not sure exactly. I know he had some concerns because of the legal thing. I think he has an injunction or did have an injunction. Not 100%.
I just want to give, and I apologize, I didn't realize your last name was Morrison. So I wanted to at least give Mr. Morrison an opportunity to question, but if he isn't here, then this is what we have.
Is that right? That's not my dog. I know how my dog was. That's Steven's dog.
Doesn't the city finish their side, their presentation, and we'll give you an opportunity to talk.
So I cannot personally, I was hoping he would show up for him to testify, because being his dogs, but the report he gave us, this is the dogs barking from his property.
Is his evidence, this, besides the incident reports, this is the one video?
This is what he said, this is what he said to me for one day.
Okay.
All the other videos were personally taken by me and me being on scene.
Got it.
But we were showed up from afterwards of that. We were out there on the 17th, the 21st, the 25th of March. And then we were there the 10th, the 14th, and the 20th.
Were these all the same point?
Yes, all three were all.
They're all point initiated, it wasn't.
No, sir, all complaint initiated. So, in the beginning of why it took so long, for this to start prior to this incident is, Mr. Soteric was calling in not anonymous. We didn't know who the complainant was. So, we would drive by, obviously there was nobody home. That's when we found out that we stayed on the property with the dogs, and there was no way to really address it. We didn't proceed it because there was a complaint. Once Mr. Soteric came upset that we weren't doing anything, I explained to Mr. Soteric that he had to call in and not be anonymous and make a complaint to it. I said, once you make a complaint, I said, then we can handle it. I said, but you have to be complained. So from there on, he was complaining to all calls, not anonymous, and would give his name to dispatch. At that time, afterwards, that's when I filed the warrant violations against the property, and Mr. Morrison is, I believe is your brother. I'm just going by the property appraiser. It shows that the property is in care of Alfonso Morrison Jr. and Eric and Martin Morrison for the estate of Anna Mae Morrison. So we filed for the nuisance calls because of the amount of times that we went out there in 2 months. The calls have died down. I don't know if it's because he knew we were coming to a magistrate meeting, but obviously we don't go out there and conduct our own calls to proceed. It's when he complains.
what you've been presented with is a video, what you've been presented with is
That's
testimony.
that video right there, that's speeding game, that's those videos. And I know that, and I know the sound of the way my dogs are. I understand. That's the husband's part. I understand.
Other than that, is there any other evidence you'd like to offer?
I wanted to show this video of him standing on my property, but I guess
Again, the video does not.
but this is the video shows. I mean, he's on my property on March 7th. It showed a video on March 7th of the dog barking. Okay, Stephen was on the property taking pictures, walking around. Why? And he made the dog bark.
Mr. Morrison, I've seen the video. I understand it's a question of credibility since we do not have the person who took the video here.
No, that's not March 7th. No.
Oh, I understand, but just, I understand your point. The thing that I want to remind you that I'm struggling with is, again, we have officer testimony plus video evidence beyond that. And what I would encourage is that if there's corrective action to be taken, that
So what correct action do you take to resolve this problem? Because we're not getting nowhere with this. Everything is against me anyway. So I just want to take that problem down.
well, I think that the easy answer is the removal of the dogs or to
See, I'm not
enclose the dogs under supervised
I'm
care.
not gonna remove my dogs. In that case, we're gonna have to get an ordinance where everybody can come and remove their dogs. Because there's a law saying that I can get rid of my dogs in the city limit, and Stephen has his dog that gets out and kills ducks. They never had a call on my dogs running around.
Okay, Mr. Morrison, we're shutting this down.
So everything gets me hit.
So, does the city have any questions or clarifications for the respondent?
Not that it helps the case, but if it helps him, other neighbors have complaints. They don't want to put their name to it, they don't want any recourse from it. If it helps you out, we have had other dogs that bark. They either bring them in their house, we have to go back and get rid of the dog. And the other thing I'll give you for your local neighborhood is the rooster that was going off every morning, and your neighbor got rid of the rooster.
But Stephen had roosters in his shed, and that crow is all.
Moving through this, I think the evidence, we're going to close that portion of this. What is the city's recommendation as to the corrective, or the action to be taken on this subject?
I would try to already correct that action with, Mr. Morrison with either having the dogs not bark, which I'm not sure how he can do that with nobody on the property, or remove the dogs and bring them to his house. Nobody asked him to get rid of the dogs, but remove them from the property if he can't control them from barking.
What is the city's recommended action today?
We just said,
It is for him to remove them from the property.
Well, the choices before us are to find him in violation and to cite.
I'm sorry?
To find him in violation and to assess fines. So,
Find him in violation, set fines.
understood. So, I'm going to close the hearing, and now we're going to do my findings again. I find again that the city's evidence is credible, that these violations have occurred. There are some caveats I think I'm going to make for this one, in that I think I'm going to reflect the same daily fine that the last citation, just to get, because of the repeated action of this, that it would be $250 a day for the violations as to the specific day, with the understanding that, again, I'm not closing the door on you to come back and address this if we can find a way to solve this problem. What I don't want to occur is this to be a continued issue with, for each of the citations that